Welcome to what I'm calling the Electrical and Computer Engineering Technical Elective session, or an info session on technical electives that we are planning to offer at the University of Arizona in Electrical and Computer Engineering in the next year. So spring 2015 and fall 2015. That'll sort of give you a planning period while you're thinking about technical electives. It's very important actually to think about a two-semester window so that you can accommodate the prerequisite structure if some of these advanced courses do require prerequisite courses. What I thought we would start with, though, today is actually thinking about your working career. Let's say you are finishing up in May of 2015, maybe you have one more semester to go. Then how many more years are you going to be using, potentially, your electrical and computer engineering knowledge? In a functioning career, maybe you will work until you're 60, maybe a little beyond, but that may put you working for 40 years beyond when you graduate. And now if we can do the math, that means if you graduate in 2015, when will you be retiring? 2055. I may no longer be here, but you might be working. And thinking about that span, can you even imagine what might be happening or what you might be working on as you're nearing retirement as an engineer in 2050? What projects will you be working on? What will you be doing? And thinking that far into the future, you maybe can't predict, and for that reason, maybe you want to think about not narrowly focusing your technical elective coursework, but actually keeping an open mind and saying, maybe I need to understand a fair amount about a lot of information now, because it's not as easy sometimes in sort of teaching yourself this material. A lot of times it's very beneficial to have an expert guide you through this, at least in the first time that you're seeing it. And thinking about breadth might be nice when you're looking at the options that you have for the spring semester and fall semester in the calendar year 2015. Thinking of that, let's now get into what you might be looking at for coursework next spring. And I think they can start to see these now. Is that true? In the university's system of navigating courses. And I decided I would just go ahead, since they've now changed the web page or the main site at the university. Now this is what you get when you get to www.arizona.edu. And if you haven't yet found where to look for courses or information, you can look at that drop-down tab and go over you're now a current student, hopefully if you're finishing in the next year or two. And I like to find it simply by navigating through registration and then registering for classes. And now you get the course descriptions if you want. And if you navigate to the most recent catalog and go to course descriptions, and then ask for the E's for electrical and computer engineering, now you have the access to at least a course description at the 300 and 400 level, and you can take, depending on your option, you can take some 300 level courses that are outside your particular option. If you're an electrical engineering option, you can take some 300 level computer engineering courses. And now you can, for example, if you're thinking about doing or taking digital communication systems, you can at least obtain a description of that if you're now weighing what courses do I want to take. And as I'm talking about that, that's what you might be thinking about in terms of, I need more information or background. But at least you can look here. You can also look to find in the schedule of classes who's scheduled to teach that, and maybe even ask them for a more detailed syllabus of the course if you're weighing your options between a couple of different classes. With that said, let's get into the classes that we're anticipating offering in the spring. And is everyone familiar with how we've numbered our courses? In terms of the decade in the number system or in the numbering system, let me show you that at least we tried. It's maybe no longer quite the same, but we've organized our courses into different general areas. One area is computer related or computer engineering related, and these classes typically are in the 60s or the 70s, not the 1960s or the 1970s or the 2060s and the 2070s, which you might still be alive in, but these are the 360s, 460s, 370s, and 470s. For example, you've taken a 369 maybe as a junior. You've taken a 372 as a junior. Those are in the computer area. That then cues you into classes that might be related to the computer engineering area, and I'm going to start off with voiding that particular strategy. Related to computer engineering classes or courses, you might consider, and I'm going to go ahead and list these as dual numbered if they are, if you're actually taking the class with not only seniors but graduate students. That will be a class that's listed as 400 and 500. We have 408, 508 planned for the spring semester, and this is agent-based simulation. If you're interested in how to perform simulations and maybe dealing with systems that are organizing themselves in agents, now you have this agent-based simulation. Another class in the computer area, now we're getting more into the way that we've typically assigned numbers. We actually ran out of numbers, is why we don't always obey the 60s and 70s terminology. 466, 566 is titled Knowledge-Based System Engineering. Or if you wanted to think of it as an artificial intelligence class, we already have one. Those are typically taught in the fall semester. This is the spring. This is really sort of a 479-2, or the second semester of artificial intelligence. But the nice thing about 466, 566 is the instructor does not require 479 as a prerequisite. So if you're graduating in December of 2015, go ahead and take this if you're interested in artificial intelligence and pick up 479, 579 in the fall. You can take those sort of out of sequence in a sense if the instructor sort of thinks of this as AI number 2 or AI 2. Another computer-related course in the 60s and 70s is ECE 473, 573, which is now Software Engineering Concepts. Or maybe we just abbreviate, that's the app class. If you're interested in building applications for the iPhone, for an Android type device, this is a class. If you've liked the programming classes you've had so far in ECE, you might consider taking 473, 573, which naturally sort of follows the 175, 275, 373 sequence of courses. This is sort of your fourth semester of programming in our curriculum. If you don't have 373, I think you need to talk to the instructor and make sure that you're okay to take 473, but I think he has worked with students in the past that have completed 275. Those are the classes that are in the general computer area. Then let's go into the electronics and let's say biomedical discipline area. And we'll start with biomedical related, which is now 417, 517 numerically. And these are, you wouldn't know it from the first one, but the electronic sequence is in the 50s. You've taken 351C. If you're in the EE option, you might take 352. Here now we're dealing in the 4s, 450 for example. This one is a biomedical class. This is now measurements and data analysis in biomedical engineering. Meaning if you're interested in maybe the instrumentation that's necessary to measure your pulse or take some other bodily measurement, then this class would be of interest to you. A class that's in the 50s, and now I'm saying it might be offered, we have to figure out, we have a faculty member I think that may decide between one or the other of the classes. 451A, 551A is entitled Introduction to Physical Electronics. But this is now worried about charges in matter, maybe a plasma. Now you have these charges floating around, or you might actually get into some quantum mechanics in this class. If that seems of interest to you, then this is the class that you might want to take, and that's Introduction to Physical Electronics. Those are the electronics and biomedical type classes that are available in the spring semester. I'm not yet talking about the fall. If we look now into the electromagnetics, and these are the general ways we've sort of organized our courses in terms of areas. So somebody might refer to that as EM or electromagnetics and optics or EMO area. These are now in the 80s as far as courses are concerned. If you are a computer engineering option student, you can take ECE 381A. So let me just say that's available as a technical elective if you're in the computer engineering option. If you're an electrical engineering student, you would take this foundational class in electromagnetics. And this now applies or relies on your knowledge of vector calculus. How are things modeled and described in 3 dimensions, and what are the calculus steps or activities you can perform to do curl, divergence, etc., and those are now related to electromagnetics concepts in 381. Another class that we associate with the optics area or the electromagnetics area, now you might think of the sun in terms of it being a source of electromagnetic energy. This is now photovoltaic solar. So if you're interested into solar, how does it work? How can we maybe improve the efficiency? What's going on when we do try to create a solar panel, for example? This is a class that you might find of interest, which is 415, 515. Another class in the electromagnetics and optics area is going to be 456, 556. Which is optoelectronics. And again, if you want to know a little bit more about that, then you would go over here, and if this hasn't already shut down. A lot of times it doesn't have a very long tolerance for being sitting idle, this particular screen. But this now tells you about optoelectronic devices and systems, radiation sources, detectors, detector circuits, and fiber optics. So if that seems of interest to you, that's 456, 556. Then we get into some more electromagnetics classes in this area at the 400 level. We have 485, 585, and now if you wonder how do they squeeze an antenna into your cell phone, this is the class that you might think about for learning about antenna theory and the design of antennas, or now you may have multiple antennas that are working together, and how do you do that to package them into such a small form factor and still obtain the transmitting and receiving capabilities that you've sort of come to expect. Here is then a spring class that if you haven't yet taken the prerequisite, this one really isn't available to you. This is a 2 in a sequence of microwave engineering courses. This is now microwave, let's say, engineering 2. It's now worrying about active circuits or active circuit design in the microwave frequency. So in the microwave frequency region in the spectrum, now you can learn about how do I design circuits, active circuits. The other class that precedes this will be taught in the fall, and that's 486, 586. And we'll talk a little bit about those classes in a minute, but I'm right now focusing on the spring classes. But you would need, in order to, for this class, for you to succeed or be successful in 488, 588, you would really need the prerequisite class, which is 486, 586, which obviously is Microwave Engineering 1. And there they're dealing with microwave frequencies with passive devices. So now think inductors and capacitors that you now can be playing with and designing in the microwave frequency range. Now, if you're keeping track, we've used 50s, we've used 60s and 70s, we've used the 80s. The 90s are actually reserved for course or house numbers, so we don't have the 90s available to us other than 498. That's the capstone, so you will take that. But now the remaining decades, and we've already sort of used some of those that are in the zeros and the tens decades, but now we're interested in classes or the area that could be generally referred to as signals and systems, which now is signal processing, communications, and control type classes, and those are in the respective 20s, 30s, and 40s in terms of numbering sequence. In the spring semester, a signal processing class is 429, 529, and it's a particular kind. It's actually a digital signal processing class. How do you now design filters in a digital domain? Now you may be able to process these signals on your computer or in a microcontroller or in a dedicated signal processing chip. How do you do that? What is the process that's necessary, or what you need to understand? So I guess I should have prefaced this last category as it's the spring, and in the spring we do things in the digital domain more so than the analog domain in the signal and systems area. here, that was our class in signal processing, in particular digital signal processing. We then have a 435, 535A, that's in the 30s, so that's a communication class. But I already prefaced this with saying the spring is dealing with digital. This is now a digital communications systems class. And we've recently then modified this so that after, I think last fall of 13, so a year ago, we introduced ECE 340A. Hopefully you all are taking or will have taken ECE 340A. That's then the prerequisite that you need in order to take the digital communications class, which is a dual-membered class. That covers then signal processing, digital signal processing. It covers communication, digital communication. We haven't yet gotten into the 40s, but if we get into the 40s with 442 and 542, that's now a digital control systems class. Those are now, and I think I counted these up maybe before we met, and there's about 13 different technical electives that are available to you from within the electrical and computer engineering department. You can take other classes outside of electrical and computer engineering, but again, if your major is in electrical and computer engineering, you might want to get a majority of your technical electives in that particular area or department. And then you would need to work with Marissa to talk about outside courses, but you're limited to 2, is that correct? So you can take 2 courses outside electrical and computer engineering during your process of selecting technical elective courses. And that could come from math, it could come from physics, it could come from some other engineering disciplines or computer science. Those are the main areas outside of electrical and computer engineering that you would be selecting from for your technical elective coursework. Now, the way that we've organized this is if you can now follow this organization of a weekly schedule, we try to ideally plan this so that we don't have that much overlap with the technical electives, but you can obviously see there are immediate overlaps in these courses. For example, you will not be able to take, whoops, I forgot to remove that 450. It's not in, well, it is in, but that's not a class in the spring semester. So we can do away with that one. But some of these others, antenna theory is Tuesday and Thursday in the morning, and I'll post these notes if hopefully you can then get those. So I don't know if you're free to take a picture, just make sure I'm not in the picture. And it may not be that clean as far as from this distance, but I'll try to give you the notes and you'll be able to then see this, because I don't know if this is really a format that you see through the university system in any way. And maybe I'll try to clean that one up, but I guess if I store it, you'll know that 450, 550 is not offered in the spring. But if you look at this, you actually have, if you're working or doing something else or taking classes outside of ECE, if you're finishing up some gen eds or some other required classes, you have a lot of your Monday, Wednesday, Friday to do that, unless you take the electromagnetics class 381A, that's a Monday, Wednesday, Friday. That's at 10, and then it has a discussion at 11 on Monday, and only on that Monday. But if you're not taking that, then you could actually be free or more flexible before 3 p.m. on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. You can then have the Artificial Intelligence 2 starting at 3. Then you could do an app class starting at 4 or the photovoltaic class starting at 4. And notice that the app class and the digital control are actually just 2 days a week. So you wouldn't have to go until 6:45 on Friday. For some reason, that's my class, but that's Monday and Wednesday. You go from 5:30 to 6:45 for the digital control. Meaning if you had an 8 to 5 job on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you could do that and still come to class if you can get here at 5:30. And that's the sequence or the schedule associated with the classes that we are planning to offer in the spring semester. Are there questions about that or the classes? Is this what you were hoping to maybe hear? Yes. Where will you find the notes? I will give the notes to Marissa, and I think Marissa will maybe email those notes out. I might also post those on a website, and that would probably be my website, wherever that is, but you might look at, now I don't even remember the link. Is it ece.arizona? Boy, all I know is I can find it. I'm not sure that I can write it down. But I guess I could find it now if I wanted to. I've now not sure I want to see what this is going to show me, but if I now go to, where was I? Shouldn't do this live, right? Oh, so there will be, and then you can see that I've actually held some of these sessions before, but I might update those, and here is where the notes would be. If I could redo that, I don't know how soon I might do that, but hopefully that will be available to you at some point. And I think I'll send those to Marissa anyway, and she can email those out. If we now look at what you might be doing, oh, I didn't finish this, did I? You might be able to find those on my website. I've already looked or written down what we are planning for the fall, and again, this is tentative for the fall of 2015, and you may not be able to follow along as quickly as I'm going to scroll through these, but you can hopefully follow along with the notation that I've established relative to what classes you might be able to take if you're depending on your option. For example, in the computer area, which are the 60s and the 70s, if you're an EE option, electrical engineering option, you could take computer architecture, 369A, or you could take the object-oriented software class, 373. You also have the opportunity to take numerical modeling if you enjoyed ECE 330. You should be able to then step right in and enjoy 411, 511. There's a complexity class, again, sort of dealing with modeling and understanding systems. The next semester in the sequence associated with computer architecture is 462, 562. So if you've already taken ECE 369 and you liked it, you can take a technical elective in that area. 467 is a computer-aided design class. 474A is basically digital logic 2. If you enjoyed 274, now you step it up a level and you can now take 474A, which is computer-aided logic design. If you want to know how computers talk to each other or how you can configure a computer network, that's ECE 478, 578. And here is the AI class, or the AI1, which is ECE 479, 579. Those are the computer area-based classes. Then in the electronics area, if you are now either CE or EE, if it's not in your catalog as a requirement for ECE 304A, you could take ECE 304A, that's a lab-based and a lecture-based class. It's a 4-unit class, but you could take that as a technical elective. 352, that's a requirement for the electrical engineering option, but if you're a computer engineering option, if you're interested in device physics, what does that, what can you learn there? That's now device electronics, ECE 352. 415 and 446 are cross-listed with, I think, chemical engineering and maybe even material science. Those are then dealing with microelectronic manufacturing and the environment and semiconductor processing. Those are electronics-related classes. And the reason they're not in the 50s is because somebody else, some other department, is the home department, and maybe they weren't playing with our numbering system. In the electromagnetics and optics area, again, you have the option of taking 381A, and that's being planned for a fall class. There's the microwave circuits 1, 486, 586. 434 is electrical and optical properties of materials. If you're interested in optics and you want to know how do we basically connect electronics and optics, 434 is open or available to you. And another optics-related class is 459, 559, the fundamentals of optics for electrical engineering. Then in the fall, we don't necessarily have a signal processing class, but we do have a controls class, 441A, 541. That's the analog controls class. And there's an optical communication system, which is ECE 430, which I think that's cross-listed with optical sciences. Again, on those classes, we have a schedule that shows the overlap, or now if you are thinking about taking a certain sequence of courses, you might look at this before you get too focused in or too committed to what technical electives you want to take, because they may actually be taught at the same time, and you may want to do some pre-thinking as far as which one do I really want to take, and planning 2 semesters in advance is a good thing relative to your technical elective coursework. But this is really the schedule of classes that is happening right now in the fall of 2014, but we pretty much will be very similar, if not the same, in 2015 fall. One more topic I would like to talk about. Have you heard of the Accelerated Master's Program? If you are a student that has a cumulative GPA of 3.3, you do have the opportunity to actually take graduate level courses and count them as both graduate coursework and undergraduate coursework, meaning you get to speed up your process if you want to go on for a master's degree. You can take as many as 4 courses that way. You don't have to take 4. You could take 2. You could take 1. We're learning that with the capstone, you don't want to get too aggressive with your selection of graduate level courses that you're taking. as an undergraduate, but you can count those as technical elective courses, and they count towards your master's degree, and you can take up to 4 of those in the accelerated master's. You would have to be admitted. You can only apply after you effectively are in your second semester junior year, but you probably do want to apply early so that you have more semesters with which to take advantage of getting 4 classes at the graduate level. Another advantage of doing this accelerated master's is we actually waive the GRE requirement, the graduate record exam. If you're thinking about graduate school, maybe you've heard of the GRE. You don't have to take that if you pursue the accelerated master's program. But if you're interested in that, you can talk to Marissa, and you can send an email to our graduate student advisor at gradadvisor@ece.arizona.edu. But that's an option you might want to think about or consider as you're moving towards taking or entering your senior year and taking technical elective courses. And that actually opens up a little bit more courses, which I haven't talked about. There are graduate level courses that are not dual numbered. You can take those as, or if you are in the accelerated master's program, and those will also count for both your technical elective coursework and your graduate coursework. So if there's some course at the graduate level that's not dual numbered and you really want to take it, you do have that option if you are in the accelerated master's program. Questions for me? Yes. So the question was, we have some classes that have an A following the number, and essentially that probably means that we've run out of numbers. We only have 3 digits. We were at one point the university was going to start renumbering everything, and we were going to have 4-digit course numbers. We've never made it that far yet. And so sometimes if we had a 474 on the books, we wanted to use that number, or maybe it was very closely related, but it was a different class, we may want to renumber it, and that might be the reason for the 474A. We do have at the graduate level some A-B sequencing classes, meaning we might have 581A and 581B, and those are a natural sequence. We don't have that too much at the undergraduate level. That's not really what you need to be worried about. I really wouldn't worry too much about there being an A or anything after it. It's really, oh, they've probably run out of numbers, and this is just making a unique number so that your transcript is uniquely different than somebody that might have already taken a 474, and that may be very historical in the past. But in this case, 474A is not going to be followed up by a 474B in your undergraduate education. I don't know that we're even planning that anyway. It's probably that we just ran out of numbers. I know that's the case in 441. We changed it to 441A when we decided to dual number it, make it a graduate level course. Yes, so 330, it used to be a 3-unit class. Now it's 4-unit. It now has a lab component, so we had to renumber it or label it as 330A. Similarly to 304, it's now 304A. It used to be 6 units, now it's 4 units as the 304A. And that's probably what you want to take, is about 5 6-unit classes, right, for your technical elective. Other questions? If not, thank you for coming and giving me an audience. Good luck. Maybe I will see you in some technical elective courses, but I hope that you're having a successful fall semester, and the registration for spring is going to be coming in the next week or two. So stay on top of that and make sure you get in at the right time. Thank you.